Hello, all of you wonderful people. Welcome, all of you. Hello, Internet land, and all of you beautiful people who exist within it. I am FPSkra, your host tonight for this thing that I like to call the Big Brain Stream, or Big Brain Lecture, or whatever the hell you want to call it, honestly. Tonight, I am here to talk to you, as we have been talking over the past, couple weeks, about political sociology. And last week, if you were here, and if you haven't, watch last week's YouTube video. If you are here, and you have been watching, tonight, we are talking about politics, but as it applies to real life. Last week, we talked about politics in kind of like the theoretical sense, and why do people believe the things that they believe? But this week, we shall be talking about, okay, what do those beliefs, what practical effect do those things have on our daily lives? And more specifically, on the economy, right? So the political economy, if you will. So, I am here to talk about the political economy, and as you know, I like to talk about these things while playing a game that loosely relates to the topic that I like to talk about. So, the game that I am loosely going to relate is actually a really fun one, and that is The Outer Worlds. So, the reason is, and we'll get into it why, this is a perfect kind of, example of the topic that we're going to talk about. The political economy run amok, right? Dystopic futures, as you know, I love. And this is definitely one of the more fun, kind of tongue-in-cheek ones. Cyberpunk took itself very seriously. The Outer Worlds, this is sci-fi done right. We're actually going to start a new game. So before I even get into like the whole topic, right? We're going to start a new game. And we're just going to go with normal, because it's like, again, the dying isn't such a big deal. So as the reason why I chose this game is actually being explained behind me as I talk to you. The whole idea behind this game and behind the topic, right? This game takes place in a dystopic future, right, where the corporations have basically become so powerful that they are the government, which is everyone's worst fear, except for maybe the corporations. It's a story told time and time again in many different versions.
Tale as old as time.
But in this particular one, it's played for kind of comedic effect for the most part. And what you're watching now is the setting up of the premise of the story, in which a colony ship that was launched about 70 years ago was deemed to be too unprofitable or something like that. And so the corporations basically set it adrift. They said, all right, well, we're not going to make our money on those colonists, which there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of colonists on board. Hundreds of thousands of colonists just left to drift forever because they were going to hurt the bottom line of, the corporations. And that is capitalism run amok. So that's why we're going to use this game to talk about it. Now, we do get to create our character, and as you know, this is the Big Brain Stream, so
you'll need all your wits to save.
Okay, we're very, very smart, but that's about it. I have 3 points remaining, but we're also going to be charm is good too, but we're going to be charming. We're going to be smart and charming, just like me.
Should come in handy if you're stopped by a guard.
Anyways, stealth is actually super useful. You get that hack and sneak and lockpick. Yeah, we're going to do that.
You certainly know your way
that's
around
just a
that.
practical side effect. We're sneaky. We're sneaky peeks. And our name, however, though, we are playing a female, and so we do need to think of a valid name, and who would be a good, female woman heroine, if you will. And I'm going to choose, one of the proudest, strongest women I know, B. Arthur. Golden Girls fans in the audience, let me hear you. I'm going to move on. This is going to continue to play in the background. So, first things first, right? Again, the whole thing we're talking about is politics, right? And how politics affects us in our actual daily lives this time. Last week we talked more so into like, where do we get our, and what does it mean, right? What are the politics? But this is specifically like, how does this actually affect us? And again, we have to go back to our frameworks of power, the pluralist, the class, and the elite managerial theories. Pluralist theories, when it comes to economics and the political economy and how it affects us in the real world, right? What does the pluralist interpretation of power and these institutional structures say? Well, for the most part, it focuses on the relationship between the nation and the state in the form of democracy in the pluralist structure, right? And for the most part, when it comes to the economy, infrastructure, all of those things that affect us, the pluralist framework basically acknowledges that because of the distribution of power and because there are power in the hands of many people, there are going to be some people, and again, this is part of the theory, there are going to be some institutions and groups that have more power than others, which means that there is going to be inequality. There will be a modicum of inequality. And I realize I'm talking over the professor here, but this is all exposition anyways, and it's played for comedic effect, but I am the most important one right here. So with regards to, the pluralist model, it admits there will be inequality, but in an ideal pluralist society, those inequalities will constantly try to be worked on, right? Those that are in power, eventually the powers will shift, and, maybe that inequality, unequal balance will shift as well. And hopefully the idea is that over time, everybody kind of remains somewhere in the same kind of average, right? Along the bell curve, everybody kind of remains somewhere in the middle. And in an ideal kind of democracy, in an ideal capitalist world, that's supposed to be the case. The problem is that there's one thing that kind of gets in the way of that. And that is the simple 5-letter word. Yep, it's 5 letters to count it out. Greed. 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 5. It's funny because I remember when I was young, right? Young and stupid, and tried talking about politics to, my elders, who I've come to learn don't know any more than anybody else.
Morons.
Right? Everybody has, and like we've discussed last week, everybody has their own beliefs for whatever reasons. One of the things that, every young kind of person who becomes interested in politics and philosophy and economics, right? As every young 14-year-old is wont to do. You stumble upon, socialism and communism and what the ideal versions of those things are supposed to be, right? And, you bring them up to, your elders who you believe know better, and you ask, why doesn't ever, because, look at the theories, look at how it's supposed to work. Why hasn't it ever worked? Why doesn't everybody try to pursue these ideals? And usually the answer you get is because people are greedy, right? One of the more memorable lines told to me by one of my parents, one of the many of them, because I have many parents, more than 2, was that, communism on paper is great, but in practicality doesn't work because people are greedy. And I would say the same thing for really any sort of economic system. Every economic system on paper is great, right? I just said the pluralist's ideal is awesome on paper. Because, it acknowledges inequality and constantly works to improve it. But again, people are greedy. And as a result, doesn't always work out. But look at this gorgeous game. Jesus. Look at that. There's planets and moons. And the planet that we're on has rings. So, you could see the rings, which is so cool, right? This game is gorgeous. It really, really is. This is our space pod that we were launched from space onto the planet. And we were to meet a smuggler who was going to get us off planet because it was illegal what that professor did. We were one of the colonists on that ship and he stole us away. And he said, I have to smuggle you out of the system. So you're going to launch you to this planet. You're going to meet a smuggler. Well, the smuggler was supposed to meet us and we killed him. That's the smuggler. So we are going to continue to walk. Let's do just a little bit of exploration here. But again, that whole this game's going to teach us, this is how you jump, right? So the capitalist, again, pluralist ideal says that, yeah, sure, inequality exists, but everybody should work to improve it because, everybody should want to improve it. It kind of goes with sort of like this enlightened egoist sort of structure that everybody will work for themselves, will work to improve their own lives, but won't generally go to hurt anybody because if they do, then, that invites harm upon them. So it's this enlightened egoism sort of thing. Look at this guy. Had his legs eaten off. That's awesome. Probably by these things over here. I'm going to crouch. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to meet one of the victims of this pluralist capitalist society run amok. So listen to this guy talk, right?
Hey, you, come here. You've tried the best now. Now try the rest. Spacer's choice. Oh, wow, that stings.
So what's funny is he works for a company called Spacer's Choice. And this is how crazy the corporations have gotten in this dystopic future. Their line, their sales line is, you've tried the best, now try the rest, Spacer's Choice. They actively admit they are the worst product on market, but because it's basically saying, like, you have no other option. We're the cheapest one. And that's how run amok the corporations have gotten in this world. Again, greed. Which kind of leads into the second theory that we should talk about, right? We talk about pluralism, but elite managerial. Elite managerial is the other primary framework that we've been talking about, if you've been paying attention to any of these lectures. The elite managerial theory basically says that the economy is dominated by, again, those elites. The 200 or 300 giant corporations administratively and politically interrelated, which together hold the keys to economic decisions. Sunglasses, all right? Or really any glasses, but sunglasses in particular. You all wear them. And there are however many, and you may have your certain brands that you like, right? Like I remember growing up, and like Ray-Bans were like the thing, needed Ray-Bans. I knew kids growing up, Oakleys, need to have Oakleys. They are all of these sunglass brands are owned by one company. And all of the competition done by all of these different sunglass brands, it's all facade, it's all fake. Because one company owns them. Doesn't matter who you buy, they don't care. You've tried the best, now try the rest. Spacer's Choice. That's basically what they're saying. They know it's like, we don't care what you buy. We're going to make money anyways. So elite managerial basically acknowledges that these corporations have all the power. And the economy has shifted. The inequality has shifted to benefit them. And, by virtue of them being in power, they have shifted rules and regulations. The elite manager, they've shifted the economy by virtue of them being in power and being able to essentially control certain functions of the government, have shifted the burden upon the masses, right? And the masses are being taken advantage of by virtue of the corporations and the elite managers, right? The investment companies, the insurance companies, banks, industrial leadership positions, right? The mass media, private foundations, civic and cultural organizations. The leaders of all these organizations are the ones that really have the power, but take advantage of the masses. Oh, look, we do get to see our character if I go idle for too long. All right, we need to get out of here. So here's the thing. While a very minimal group up top benefits, the ones down at the bottom, the masses, us, right, who do not belong to that elite class, our lot in life is to essentially enrich those above us by the virtue of the way that the economy has been structured. To take that a step further, right, we can take that into the class Marxist theory, because the elite managerial theory doesn't really think much of the masses. Basically says that they are there to kind of be taken advantage of But at the same time, they're kind of just willing participants of the system. They don't want the power, and they are happy to be taken advantage of. And to a certain degree, maybe that's true, right? Look at the world that we live in currently, right? We all know that most of these major corporations are willing to, buy and sell our information and all that, but we still use the Facebook. We know that Amazon is a shit company, but we still buy shit off their website all the time. I'm streaming on Twitch right now, which is owned by Amazon. So maybe I am a part of the masses. And now all of a sudden I'm dropping frames, which is a son of a bitch. All right, good. Seems we're back now. So, class Marxists. Hold on, I need to take this guy out. Marauder Vandal. I'm gonna reload the gun and go boop. And then this guy, and then we go hey, boom, boom, boom. There we go. Alright, hold, I'm gonna steal. I killed this man, and then I'm stealing his shit. Capitalism. Anywho. So, to take the elite managerial theory a step further, right? The class Marxist theory basically states, and this is the fun bit, all right? The elite managerial doesn't think much of the masses, but the class Marxist theory sets up the, our social structure in basically to two major groups. The working class and the property owning class, the ruling class and the working class. And so what the theory essentially goes is that the ruling class own the means of production, and the working class is just entitled to work with them. I'm still hidden, right? Turn around, buddy. What are you doing? All right, can I... Up. There we go. Oh, boy. Boop. 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 Oh, boy. This is not good. Oh, stop it. Get away from me. Yeah. They're dead. And now I can take their stuff. Capitalism. So, the class Marxist theory says that there's the ruling class and the working class, but whereas the elite managerial theory doesn't really entrust anything to the masses, because they say the masses are just a bunch of dopes who are willing to be ruled by the elites. Class Marxist theory says that the working class over time will develop what is called a class consciousness, in which they will realize that they are being taken advantage by the ruling class, that, even though they only have their labor to sell, that labor is extremely valuable to the ruling class, because the ruling class doesn't have labor. Without the working class, the ruling class can't make shit. And if they can't make shit, they can't sell shit. If they can't sell shit, they can't make money. So without the working class, the ruling class is nothing. And so that class consciousness will come together, and they will rise up to seize the means of power, realizing that they are truly the ones in control, and eventually set the world right. That's what class Marxist theory says. But it basically has the same kind of distribution of power as the elite managerial. There's these controlling elites up here who own all of the shit and make all of the money and garner benefit from the institutions of power, whereas the vast majority of us, the working class, the middle class, the proletariat, we don't get much. And so now they're going to go kill the Marauders, because this ship, which is the guy that our pod landed on, this ship was his ship, and we're going to go take it. But first we need to help these guys kill the Marauders. So we're going to have them do most of the work while we flank. And we're going to help out, obviously. All right, so those are the three institutions or theories of power and how they apply to our economy. But specifically, we should talk about kind of, real world, how does it work? And so we have to talk about the U.S.'s economic structure and how democracy and capitalism kind of fit together. I'm going to save this guy. Is that? Oh, it's this guy over here.
Surprise, motherfucker.
I don't know why that was so funny. So, capitalism, democracy, right? In the U.S., right? Technically, we are not a pure capitalist society, all right? Not in the U.S. anyways. We are technically a mixed economy, because a purely capitalist society would have all privately owned industry. The U.S. is a mix of privately and publicly owned industry. We do have public works such as water and electricity and phone lines, right? There are things that are owned publicly, or at least the government has a stake in. And then there are corporations that are wholly private, that are owned by individuals or groups of people. And because of that mixed nature, it's not a truly capitalist system. In a pure capitalist, and there's a reason why that is. Because in a pure capitalist system, right, it is supposed to be that, the government doesn't have a say, right? It's supposed to run wild and sort of manage itself, because through the nature of, business things.
I was a businessman doing business.
And competition and, supply and demand, corporations aren't going to try to screw over the public, because they kind of need the public on their side, and prices gouging won't happen because they need to compete with each other. Well, the U.S. tried pure capitalism once upon a time, and that's when, way back in the 1800s, when the robber barons developed, right? There were like 5 guys, like Rockefeller and his ilk, that basically owned everything. And that's when the state needed to step in, and by the state I mean the federal government, had to step in and be like, pump the brakes, we're going to have to bust you guys up. And that's where the monopoly busting legislation came from. All right, as we walk to Edgewater, which is that corporate-held town over there. Because of, again, the age of the robber barons and the way that capitalism evolved over time, the way that it's kind of evolved in the U.S. and the way that it's supposed to work in a democracy is that the people have a stake. Again, pluralist society have their own power, and they express that power through voting and by giving money to elected officials and all that. Well, the idea is that the corporations will be held in check by the state, and they're not going to run amok and be able to take advantage of the public, because the public will utilize their power when it comes to boop. Oh. Boop. 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 Oh. Can I kill you, please? Oh, this guy's cowering. Stop it. Stop it. Boop. Boop. Come on. Stop it. Oh, he's almost dead. Got him. I thought you were cowering. Yeah. Fuck. Take all your shit. But anyways, back to what I was saying. The people will rein the corporations in by virtue of them having a say in the government. The problem is that over time, the corporations have basically gotten the power to influence the government themselves. And this is through a variety of means. But this is generally can be attributed to what has been called the Neoliberalism movement. Which is basically just this, it's a conservative movement that puts essentially corporate interests above all else for a variety of reasons, right? And it's sort of a logical one, and it was essentially started by the Reagan administration, the idea of trickle-down economics, that if the corporations do well, right, then the nation does well, because the idea is that the people of a nation need things, right? And so, like this guy, right? This is actually a pretty damn decent example. This guy is, hold on, he's going to tell us in a second, junior in humor, but he's a grave digger. He provides a service. And that service is that when people die out in the colonies here, they need to be buried. And when they're, so the company provides that service. That's kind of what neoliberalism is. Neoliberalism is that people need services. People need water. People need telephone service. People need electricity. They need social welfare. They need insurance. Well, under a neoliberalism point of view, The government isn't in the best position to help those people. Corporations are. Private corporations are. This view that the government isn't in the best position to help the people, private corporations are. Private business is. And so money that is given to the government, right, isn't best spent on these social safety nets, if you will, or infrastructure or resources to be provided by the people. That money is best redistributed amongst the corporations so that they can then provide those things. It's essentially saying that the government is to act as a middleman. This was best exemplified by Reagan's famous line.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help."
Can't roll my eyes any harder. Now here's kind of like exemplifying what the problem with this, right? Well, sure, the corporation provides the service for a nominal fee. Well, the problem is that some people don't want to necessarily pay that fee because that fee can be maybe prohibitively expensive. And now we have people such as this junior in humor, who is hiring me, the kind of drifter who has come into town, to kind of break some arms and get that money that the corporation is owed. So I have become a shill, a corporate shill. Now we're going to go into Edgewater, which is this lovely, lovely little town. See Spacer's Choice. There it is. Employment community. Well, so neoliberalism, and the movement holds strong today. There are still a lot of people who believe that it's the corporate interests that should be kind of propped up over everybody else's because they're the ones that are best in the position to help other people. That if the corporations make money, then they will pass that on to the workers and the families of the workers and all that. Problem is, and this is getting off the book a little bit, but there was a longitudinal study done over the past 50 years to see how that system actually works. Does it in fact improve the lives? And what they found is that overwhelmingly, the money that is paid to the corporations through the government, or the savings on taxes is generally how they do it, does not reach the lower rungs. It gets either fed right back into the corporation or distributed amongst the managers of that corporation, whereas the workforce does not see a pay increase, does not see an increase in benefits, does not see any sort of tangible benefit whatsoever. And for a really real kind of example of that would be the most recent Tax Reform Act done back in 2016, in which massive tax cuts were given to corporations all throughout the U.S., with the idea that it was going to increase wages for workers across the board, and there was zero increase in wages across the board. And so that's what neoliberalism has done. That's what trickle-down economics has done. Now, we are living right now through what can be called a recession, right? And we're going to head to the cannery so that we can talk to our guy. The recession right now isn't man-made. It is, environmental in a sense due to the pandemic. But it's not the first recession that we've been through. There was the Great Depression back in the 20s. There was the Great Recession back in 2008. And now we are living through the pandemic recession, I guess you can call it. I'm going to pull a capitalist move. Close this door. I'm going to steal monies. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to steal it. Because I can steal that and then steal that. Capitalism. So the Great Recession back in 2008 was, however, man-made. What caused it? Well, it was, again, that 5-letter word, greed. We're going to pause for a second and talk to Reed Thompson here. This is actually a pretty good example of class/Marxism theory at work. So he has a problem, right? I need repairs. I need a ship regulator. And he's going to say, well, I'll give it to you, but first you got to do something for me. In classic RPG fashion.
Most emphatically not. No, I do not imagine they will be pleased. But like a parent disciplining an unruly child, you will be doing them a kindness.
Doing them a kindness.
The people living in the botanical labs, they're deserters, former workers. I need them back at their posts. I need them to come home.
Class Marxist theory says that the workforce does have power because they have the labor. This guy needs the labor. Without those people, he's losing money, and he needs them to come back, and he's become desperate because he's the manager of this kind of outpost here. And I'm going to say why, and he's going to explain.
Edgewater is struggling. We haven't hit our production quota in years. If we don't meet our quotas this year, the company might shut us down for good. I need those workers back at their stations. The fault was entirely mine. I pushed them too hard.
This whole line is bullshit.
My hope is that by cutting off their power, you will convince those deserters to come back to town. Before you go to the
I pushed them too hard, so right now I'm going to cut off all of their resources so that it's so uncomfortable that they have to come back to me.
The power's about to go.
It's the powerful exercising their power. Companions, cool, great, awesome, let's go. And now Parvati is going to tell us a little bit of something extra.
Hey, ma'am, can we talk?
Yes.
Sorry. You just want to get out of here. It's just, Mr. Thompson has his own view on matters, on account of it's his job and what all.
That's not the only side of the tale. So what's the other side of it?
Mr. Thompson, a person's a gear. It does its job quiet-like. If it squeaks or stutters, it gets replaced. The deserters are decent folk. I knew some of them.
See, so again, it's perceiving the working class as disposable, essentially. Perceiving the working class as tools, as a means towards an end, and that's it. And in order to bring them back into the fold, he's willing to cut off their power. Much like the in Pennsylvania's history, the coal mines used to do. You had to rely upon the corporation, the coal mine, for everything. And if you started fucking up, it would take everything from you. The people that are hit hardest by these policies, unfortunately, end up being the middle class, which is probably the vast majority of the vast majority of Americans perceive themselves, at least, to be middle class. Now, what is middle class? Middle class is essentially anybody who makes a household income, I believe,
You're an outsider.
of between.
Fantastic. Vicar Maximilian De Soto at your service.
I believe it's $45,000 and like $170,000 a year or something. It's actually a fairly large margin. Median income in the U.S. sits at about $37,000 a year. That's I believe adjusted gross income. That's what interesting little tidbit. That's the exact salary of Homer J. Simpson from The Simpsons. So the middle class, though, ends up getting hurt potentially the most by a lot of these policies. Why, you may ask? Well, as the problem is that when it comes to, we're gonna go out here and start heading off toward to see Adelaide, see if we can see her, meet her, the deserters, the proletariat, if you will. When it comes to the middle class, the government does need to find a way to pay for things, right? And they do that primarily through taxation. Unfortunately, everybody needs to pay taxes, right? But one of the problems with regards to this neoliberal point of view that has overtaken our society, it seems, is that because the corporations, who are the wealthiest members of our society, are deemed to be more important and more, deserving of their funds so that they can distribute it, even though they don't. And the poorest few don't have the money to give. Who does the government tax the most? Or put the heaviest burden on, I should say. That is the middle class. That is the vast majority of Americans. But the middle class end up... Oop, yeah, there's a bad guy there.
Got it. Heads down.
Marauder goon. Ooh, there's a couple bad guys there. I can murder this guy. Oop. Oh, he saw me. Ooh. Ooh. Oh, shit. Oh, there's a dog. There's a giant dog. Yeah, hit it. And kill this guy. There we go. Did it. Perfect. First try. These were goons. They were bad guys anyways. Let's steal their shit. So the heaviest burden is placed upon the middle class. And as a result of that, they are the ones that suffer the most, right? They end up paying for all of the, safety nets that are required of the lowest members of our society. And by lowest, I mean lowest socioeconomic statuses. I don't mean the lowest as in, they're below us. No, I just mean as in, like, they make less than most people. Hello? Look at this guy. Look at that rifle. I want it. Worry about that one later. So, how does the government charge the middle class? Well, they do it through taxation, and generally there are two ways to do this. The government pays for everything with taxation. Social Security, public assistance, utilities, healthcare, Medicare, Medicaid, and, unfortunately, corporate welfare, the military, other public services such as the post office and the like. Well, the way tax systems are generally set up, there's kind of two basic ways to do it. The first way being what is called a flat tax. And a flat tax basically says, and it sounds easy and it sounds lovely, and it's kind of equal in a way because everybody gets charged the same percentage. Everybody pays 20% of their income to the government or something like that, right? And that sounds great because, oh, well, it's fair, right? Everybody gets charged the same. And on its face, sure, I agree with you. It sounds fair. But the problem is that 20% to one person is a hell of a lot more than 20% to another person. So put it this way. Imagine that you make $100 a paycheck, right? And maybe back in high school you did. Maybe you do now. If you had to give up 20% of that paycheck, every paycheck, that's $20 out of $100. Right? $20 when all you have is $100, $20 is a lot, okay? But say you're a billionaire. No, not even that. A millionaire. And you have to give up 20% of your say you make $1 million a year. And you have to give up 20% to the government. That's only, what is it? $200,000. The span of you're left out over with $800,000. You're not going to miss that $200,000. You're just going to be like, whatever. $200,000 to a millionaire is nothing. Because I still have $800,000. I could buy everything I ever want with $800,000. But if I only have $100, if I only make $10,000 a year, giving up $2,000 is quite a bit of money to give up because that only leaves me with $8,000. That's by no means enough. And so that's the problem with flat taxes. So the US and most civilized countries use what is called a progressive tax system, in which there are striations. The lower your income, the less you pay in taxes. And then at certain intervals, you start to pay more. Now, it doesn't mean that, like, if you hit an interval, you get taxed a flat rate at everything. No. It's whatever you make above that interval gets taxed at that higher rate. So that ideally, in an ideal world, it is more egalitarian, right? Egalitarian is basically saying it's equal, but taking into consideration everybody's individual needs. The progressive tax is what we use. The problem is that it's not just the federal government that takes the taxes, it's the state governments as well. And the state governments are more regressive than progressive. They put a heavier burden on the lower classes. The federal government places a heavier burden on the upper classes and the corporations. Just to touch on the corporations, look up social welfare when you get a chance. Because the corporations get a lot of benefit from tax breaks and the advantages of loopholes and being able to hide their money. And just as an example, name the three big tech companies like Amazon, Google, Apple. All of them paid zero income tax last year. How much income tax did you pay last year? You paid more than Amazon, that's for sure. So it's the middle class that has to front the burden. And as a result, that has a heavy blow on us as a society. This is why politics is important, because it clearly affects you, right? Some people say politics I only care about politics when it affects me personally. Well, guess what? It's affecting you personally right now. This can go on for another 2 hours. I have enough material here to blow your mind 3 times over. But I'm going to stop there. Thank you for joining me on this week's Big Brain Relax and Learn lecture. If you like what you see, please leave a like. Please subscribe. Please follow me over on Twitch. It's free to you, but it helps me out a lot. And I like to do this. And if you like it, please leave a comment. Tell me what you wanted me to play or what you want me to talk about. I stream these over on Twitch every Monday at 10 p.m. And I usually have the videos up every Tuesday from the week before. I take them down and edit them, barring any life circumstances. But I really appreciate it. Thank you for joining me. And I encourage you to, I'll see you next time. Have a good one.